Stop scrolling right now and listen to me carefully. If you've ever wondered whether the people closest to you love you for who you are or what you have, if you've ever questioned whether your family's loyalty is real or just because of your money, if you've ever felt like success has made you unable to trust anyone's motives, you need to hear what happened to me. Hit that subscribe button immediately because what I'm about to tell you will change how you see love, family, and the true cost of wealth forever. Turn on those notifications because this story isn't just about money or betrayal. This is about discovering that the people you die for wouldn't lift a finger to help you if you had nothing. This is about learning the most painful truth a successful person can learn, that you've been living with strangers who wore the masks of family. Stay until the very end because what I did after discovering the truth will shock you even more than what they did to me. My name is Emeka Okafor. I'm 52 years old. And 2 years ago, I destroyed my own life by conducting an experiment that answered a question I should never have asked. Does my family truly love me, or do they just love my money? The answer destroyed everything I believed about the people I'd spent my life protecting and providing for. And once you know that truth, there's no going back to ignorance. There's no unseeing what you've seen. There's no unfelt the pain of that betrayal. This is my story, and I'm telling it as a warning to everyone who's built wealth. Be very, very careful before you test the people you love, because you might not survive what you discover. Let me take you back to the beginning, so you understand what I had before I lost it. Not the money, but the illusion. The beautiful, comforting illusion that I was loved. I built my fortune from nothing. I grew up in a small village in Imo State, so poor that some days we didn't eat. My father was a farmer who could barely feed his 6 children. I was the second born, and from age 10, I knew I had to find a way out of that poverty. I worked harder than anyone I knew. I hawked pure water in Lagos traffic as a teenager. I saved every kobo. I put myself through Polytechnic, studying at night while working during the day. After graduation, I started a small trading business, buying goods in bulk and selling to retailers. The business grew slowly, then faster. Within 10 years, I'd expanded into importation. Within 20 years, I had a fleet of trucks, warehouses in 3 states, and contracts with major companies. By the time I was 45, I was worth over 500 million naira, a self-made millionaire. I married my wife, Adora, when I was still struggling. She was a trader in Onitsha market, beautiful and hardworking. We dated for 2 years before I could afford to pay her bride price. She stood by me during the hardest years, when I was working 18-hour days, when we lived in a one-room apartment, when we had to choose between buying food or paying rent. Or at least, that's what I told myself. That's the story I believed about our relationship. That we'd struggled together. That she'd loved me when I had nothing. But looking back now, I realized that even then, I was always providing. I was always giving. Even in my poverty, I was taking care of her. She never had to struggle the way I did. I made sure of that. We had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. Chinidu, the oldest, was 30 now. Kalechi, the middle child, was 27. And Amara, my only daughter, was 24. I'd given them everything I never had. Private schools, university education abroad for all 3, cars, apartments, trust funds. They'd never known poverty, never known hunger, never known what it meant to truly struggle. I'd built a mansion in Lekki, Lagos. 6 bedrooms, swimming pool, cinema room, everything a successful man should have. My wife hadn't worked in 15 years, she didn't need to. My children had never held real jobs, they didn't need to. I provided everything. And I was proud of that. Proud that I'd broken the generational cycle of poverty. Proud that my family lived in comfort and luxury. Proud that I'd succeeded where my father had failed. But somewhere deep inside, a question had been growing. A doubt that I tried to ignore but couldn't quite silence. Did they love me? Or did they love what I provided? The question started small. Little moments that I'd notice and then dismiss. My wife's affection seemed to increase when I brought home expensive gifts, and decrease when I was too busy with work to take her shopping. My sons called me more frequently when they needed money for something, less frequently just to talk. My daughter was warm and loving when I was giving her things, cold and distant when I was asking her to be responsible or mature. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was overthinking, that of course they loved me. I was their husband, their father. Love didn't need to be tested. But the doubt grew, and grew, until it consumed me. I started noticing more patterns. How conversations always ended up being about what I could do for them, what I could buy, what I could provide. How no one seemed interested in my day, my struggles, my feelings, unless it affected their lifestyle. How my wife would be irritated and cold when business was stressful and I was preoccupied, but warm and affectionate when things were going well and I was generous with money. How my children would visit less when I was too busy to entertain them or give them things, but would show up immediately when they needed something. I tried to talk to my wife about it once. Hey, Dora, do you ever feel like our relationship is too transactional? Like it's all about money? She laughed. What kind of question is that? You're a provider. That's what men do. That's your role. Why are you overthinking things? Sometimes I wonder if you'd love me if I wasn't successful. If I was still that struggling trader you met. But you're not that person anymore. Why think about hypotheticals? You're successful. Be grateful for that. She didn't answer the question, and that non-answer haunted me. The breaking point came at my 50th birthday party 2 years ago. I'd thrown a massive celebration, rented out an entire event center, invited over 300 people, spent over 20 million naira on the party. My family gave speeches that night. My wife spoke about how I was the best provider any woman could ask for. My sons talked about how I'd given them every opportunity. My daughter said I was the most generous father in the world. Every speech was about what I gave, what I provided, what I did for them. Not one person said they loved me for who I was. Not one person mentioned my character, my dreams, my personality, my humanity beyond my ability to provide financially. I stood there smiling, accepting their tributes, while inside I was screaming. Does anyone actually know me? Does anyone actually love me? That night, lying in bed after the party, I made a decision. A terrible, necessary, life-destroying decision. I would test them. I would pretend to lose everything and see what remained. See if the love was real or if it was just a transaction that would end the moment I couldn't provide anymore. I spent 3 months carefully planning. I consulted with my lawyer and accountant, swearing them to secrecy. I structured things so that my actual wealth was protected in offshore accounts and investment vehicles that my family didn't know about. But on paper, I would appear to lose everything. Then I staged my downfall. I started with the business. I told my family that I'd made bad investments, that contracts had fallen through, that I was in serious financial trouble. At first, they seemed concerned. How bad is it? My wife asked. Bad. We might lose the house, the cars, everything. Can't you get a loan? Talk to people? Fix it. I'm trying. But it's not looking good. Over the next few weeks, I escalated the narrative. I sold the cars, all of them, claiming creditors were seizing assets. I put the Lekki mansion on the market. I closed my office. I stopped giving my family their usual allowances. We need to cut back drastically, I told them at a family meeting. I'm sorry, but until I can rebuild, we have to live differently. My wife's face hardened. What do you mean differently? I've rented a small 3-bedroom apartment in Ikeja. We'll move there at the end of the month. I've sold your Mercedes. The jewelry I bought you. We'll need to sell that too to cover some debts. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I've lost everything, Adora. Everything. We're starting over from nothing. The transformation that followed broke something fundamental in me. My wife stopped sleeping in the same room. She moved into the guest bedroom, saying she needed space to process. She stopped cooking, stopped cleaning, stopped engaging with me at all beyond necessary communication. My sons became scarce. Suddenly, they were too busy to visit, too busy to take my calls. When I did reach them, conversations were brief and cold. Dad, I can't really talk right now. We should catch up soon. I'm dealing with some things, we'll talk later. They never asked how I was coping, never offered support, never suggested coming home to help figure things out. My daughter was the most honest in her cruelty. She came to visit once after I announced the financial collapse. Daddy, is it true? Have you really lost everything? Yes, Amara. I'm so sorry. I know this affects your lifestyle. Affects my lifestyle? Daddy, you've ruined my life. How am I supposed to show my face to my friends? Do you know how embarrassing this is? Everyone knows we're broke now. We're not broke, we're just whatever. I can't deal with this. I'm going back to my apartment. Call me when you figure this out. She left, and she didn't come back. We moved into the small Acadia apartment. The mansion was sold to a buyer I'd secretly arranged through my lawyer, who would hold it for me. My wife moved through the small space like she was in prison. I can't believe you've brought me to this, she said constantly. After everything I sacrificed for you. 25 years of marriage, and this is what I get. Living like a poor person. Adora, we lived in worse than this when we first married. Remember? We made it work then. That was different. We were young and building something. Now we're old and you've destroyed what we built. It's not the same. I tried to hold her, to comfort her. She pulled away like my touch disgusted her. Don't touch me. Just don't. That's when I knew. She didn't love me. She loved the lifestyle I provided. And without it, I was nothing to her. But I pushed forward with the test. I needed to see how far it would go. I got a job. A humble job as a sales representative for a small company. I was making 50,000 naira a month. barely enough to pay rent and feed us. I'd wake at 5 a.m., dress in cheap clothes instead of my usual designer suits, and go to work like any regular struggling Lagos man. My wife was mortified. "You're embarrassing us. A man of your age, your former status, working as a common sales rep? People are laughing at us. We need to eat, Adora. Bills need to be paid. What choice do I have? You have the choice to fix this, to get back on your feet, to stop accepting this poverty." "I'm trying." "You're not trying hard enough." The months that followed were a nightmare. My wife became openly hostile. She complained constantly about the apartment, the food, the lack of money, my failure as a man. She started going out more, dressing up, coming home late. "Where are you going?" I'd ask. "Out. To see friends. People who aren't failures." One night, she didn't come home at all. When she returned the next morning, she didn't even bother to lie about where she'd been. "I'm not doing this anymore, Emeka. I'm not living in poverty with you. I married a successful man. That man is gone. I don't know who you are now." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I want a divorce. I've already spoken to a lawyer. We'll split whatever assets remain. Then I'm moving on with my life." She was divorcing me. My wife of 25 years, the woman I'd struggled with and built an empire for, was leaving me because I was no longer rich. My children supported her decision. Not one of them called to check on me, to offer support, to suggest that maybe I needed family during this difficult time. They all sided with their mother, agreeing that I'd failed them, that I'd destroyed the family, that I was an embarrassment. I sat in that small apartment, alone, broken, with 50,000 naira in my bank account and 500 million safely hidden away. I'd gotten my answer. The test was complete. None of them loved me. They loved my money. They loved the lifestyle. They loved what I could do for them. But me, Emeka, the man, the human being with feelings and struggles and dreams, they didn't care about him at all. The devastation was complete. Not financial. I hadn't actually lost anything. But emotional, psychological, spiritual. I discovered that I'd spent 25 years married to a stranger. That I'd raised 3 children who saw me as an ATM, not a father. That every moment I'd thought was love was actually transaction. Every hug was payment for provision. Every "I love you" was actually "I love what you give me." I let the divorce proceed. I didn't fight it. I didn't reveal the hidden wealth. I let her think she was divorcing a broke failure. I gave her the settlement she demanded, scraps from the supposed ruins of my fortune. The day the divorce was finalized, I moved out of the Acadia apartment. And I disappeared. For 6 months, I traveled. I needed to process what I'd learned. I needed to grieve not just the loss of my family, but the loss of the illusion. The loss of believing I was loved. When I returned to Lagos, I reclaimed my wealth. I moved back into my mansion, which had been held in trust. I restarted my business using the capital I'd secretly preserved. Within a year, I was as successful as I'd been before, maybe more so. And I was completely alone. My wife heard, of course. Word spreads quickly in Lagos when a broke man suddenly becomes wealthy again. She called me. "Emeka, is it true? You have money again." "Hello, Adora. People are saying you bought back your house. That you're working again. That you never really lost everything. Is that true?" "Yes, it's true." Silence. Then, "So you lied? You pretended to be broke? Why would you do that?" "To see if anyone actually loved me." That's cruel, Emeka. That's manipulative. You hurt us for some kind of twisted test." "I hurt you? I hurt you." I laughed bitterly. "You divorced me when you thought I was broke. You abandoned me when I needed you. You proved that your love was conditional on my wallet. And I'm cruel. We could work this out. We could try again. I made a mistake." "No, I made the mistake. I spent 25 years believing you loved me. I spent my life providing for children who saw me as a bank account. I destroyed my health building wealth for people who would abandon me the moment it disappeared. That was my mistake. And I'm not making it again." I hung up. She called back multiple times. I never answered. My children reached out too. Suddenly, they wanted to rebuild our relationship. Suddenly, they remembered I was their father. Suddenly, they were sorry for how they'd treated me. But it was too late. The test had shown me the truth. And once you see that truth, you can't unsee it. I'm 52 now. Wealthy. Successful. Completely alone. I have acquaintances, business associates, people who respect my success. But family? Real family? I don't have that. I probably never did. People ask me if I regret the test. If I wish I'd stayed in comfortable ignorance, believing my family loved me even if it wasn't true. The answer is complicated. Part of me wishes I'd never known. Wishes I'd died believing I was loved, even if it was a lie. Ignorance would have been kinder. But another part of me is grateful. Grateful I discovered the truth while I'm still young enough to rebuild. Grateful I'm not spending the rest of my life serving people who don't actually care about me. Grateful I can now invest in relationships built on truth, not transaction. The destruction was complete, but maybe necessary. Maybe the illusion needed to shatter so something real could be built from the ruins. I don't know if I'll ever trust anyone again. I don't know if I'll ever remarry, ever rebuild relationships with my children, ever believe that someone loves me for me and not for what I can provide. But I know the truth, and living with painful truth is better than living with comfortable lies. The test destroyed me. The answer destroyed me. But maybe I needed to be destroyed. Maybe we all do. Maybe that's the only way to rebuild on a foundation of truth instead of illusion. If you're successful, if you're wealthy, if you've built something impressive, be very careful before you test the people you love. Because you might discover what I discovered, that you've been living with conditional love disguised as unconditional loyalty. And once you know that, you can never unknow it. The destruction is permanent. The innocence is gone forever. But maybe that's the price of truth. Maybe that's the cost of really knowing where you stand. I paid that price. And now I'm living with the answer. If this story hit you deep, if it made you question your own relationships, if it reminded you to check whether the love around you is real or transactional, subscribe to this channel immediately. Hit that notification bell because I share real stories about real truths that successful people face but rarely talk about. These aren't easy stories. They're painful truths that might save you from the mistakes I made. Drop a comment below. Was I wrong to test my family? Do you think people who truly love you should stay regardless of money? Have you ever questioned whether people love you or your success? Would you have the courage to conduct this test yourself, knowing you might not survive what you discover? Let's have this difficult, necessary conversation. Share this video with someone who's successful and might need to hear this warning. Share it with someone who's building wealth and hasn't thought about whether their family's love is real. Share it with anyone who needs to understand that provision without genuine connection is just an expensive transaction. Thank you for listening to my painful story. Thank you for not judging me for testing my family or for being destroyed by what I found. Thank you for understanding that sometimes the questions we ask have answers that break us completely. Remember, wealth without love is just expensive loneliness. Provision without genuine connection is slavery. Success means nothing if the people celebrating with you are just there for the benefits. Build your wealth, but build it with people who'd stand with you if it all disappeared tomorrow. Don't make my mistake. Don't spend decades building for people who'd abandon you in a moment if the money stopped flowing. And if you ever find yourself wondering whether your family truly loves you, be very, very careful before you test that question. Because the answer might destroy everything you believe about the life you've built. I conducted the test. I got my answer. And now I'm living in the ruins of the beautiful illusion I destroyed. Was it worth it? Ask me in another 10 years. Right now, I honestly don't know. Stay blessed. Stay wise. Stay alert to whether the love around you is real. And may you never have to learn the lessons I learned in the way I had to learn them. Until next time, value truth over comfort. Seek genuine connection over transaction. And remember that the people who love you only when you're successful never really loved you at all.